Hey everyone, Jeffrey here. My subject is a cliche subject, which a lot of people choose, but I've always felt pretty strongly about this, and I want to give you some information that what I found and talk about it a little bit. The death penalty. I'm not trying to switch anyone's mind here, although I do know that this is a persuasive speech. I do hope that this does give you the information for you to see where money goes through and kind of what happens in California and throughout the country. But we'll move over to the next slide. And the Webster's Dictionary defines the death penalty as death as a punishment given by a court of law for every serious crimes. Capital punishment, I mean, it's simple terms, it's self-explanatory. And for what I'm talking about here too, it's not little crimes. I shouldn't say little because all crimes are bad, but I'm talking about serial killers, uh mass shooters who were caught, and they're serving life in prison without parole, or they're serving 10 life sentences. And it's something that it always confused me, as far as why waste resources, why waste taxpayers dollars to house these inmates when they've committed a serious punishment or a serious crime, taking innocent people's lives away. We're hearing them out with all these appeals, or other trials as to why they did what they did, when we don't get to hear those who they've taken their lives away from without them knowing. The mass shootings, the one that happened in Vegas a couple of years ago, or the mass shootings that happen over the weekend, or even the mass shootings that happen every day. I mean, no one can come back from that and explain why they deserve to live and why they shouldn't have been there at that spot when it happened. And that's the unfortunate thing, is that these serial killers and these mass shooters uh you know commit the crime, but our courts and our judicial system is so weird that we've give these people a housing and try to understand as why they did what they did. Yes, that those are good things to figure out to try to prevent what happens. But when someone is serving a life sentence without parole and they don't want to talk, I mean, there's no need to waste those resources and keep them there. We need to execute them. As harsh as that sounds, that's something that really needs to happen, and we need to enforce, not only as a country but as a state here in California. Because the last that we had, we've only executed 13 people since 1978. So I mean, that tells you a lot. It really does. And when you see some of the numbers that are people who are sentenced to the death penalty, and they're in prison right now, I mean, it'll get you thinking, like, what the heck's going on, So let's move on to the next page. These are just examples of serial killers that I've been able to find. Like Delmas Colvin, he had seven plus kills. He's sentenced to imprisonment in life. He's sentenced to life imprisonment. He was a truck driver who killed prostitutes in New Jersey and Ohio. Right below him, we have Joseph James D'Angelo, which I think everyone may have seen under the breaking news, that it was a Californian ex-police officer who came forward and said that, he was the Golden State Killer. He was the Visalia ransacker. He was a East Area rapist. He killed he murdered 3 people in Sacramento and 10 people in Southern California itself. And he was also linked to more than 50 rape cases in Sacramento. Okay? I mean, something like that, that's that harsh, where we have the hard evidence, there should be no reason why he got this life sentence. He should have been executed on the spot to be shown as an example of. It's crazy. It really is. Billy Mansfield, 5+ more deaths. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. He murdered women and girls in Florida and California, burying most of them in their family home. Then we have Charles Severance, 3 kills, sentenced to life imprisonment, murdered elderly residents in Alexandria out of hatred for the rich, Alexandria, Virginia. So those are just some examples, and there's tons and tons and tons of them. You know, we have Jeffrey Dahmer. Yes, he was executed by his cellmate, but still, I mean, we all know that case. I mean, his name alone, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer. We know who he was. We have John Wayne Gacy. We have Ted Bundy. I believe Ted Bundy was executed, but you know, just some of these guys that were imprisoned for life and didn't face the death penalty. I mean, they basically got that sentence, but they never saw execution. You know, so next we're gonna see another slide that's gonna show the states, our states here in the U.S., and how many of those are in prison for the death sentence. You know, the number of prisoners that are currently sitting on the death penalty in California is 711. You know, it's crazy. California already is a crazy state as far as, you know, with everything that's going on. So that doesn't really surprise me, but it's also surprising just because, I mean, it's an outrageous number. You know, Florida, we have 347. Texas, we have 210. And Texas was a state where they really enforced it. And I don't have the numbers. I should have looked it up, but I mean, they were pretty high up there as far as executions per year. It's pretty nuts. You know, we have Tennessee at 51. We have Georgia at 45. Missouri at 22. Then we go down to Idaho and 8. Wyoming 1. South Dakota at 1. New Hampshire at 1. So it's just pretty crazy to see how many prisoners are in each state that are currently facing the death penalty. But if you look at those cases or case by case, I can guarantee you at least 50% of those are just life in prison or life without parole. And we need to understand that life without parole is exactly what it sounds like. There's no chance of parole. So you basically will die in prison. But what my whole explanation here on this presentation is, why keep them, you know, without parole, life without parole? The resources, the taxpayer, the tax money that's going into, you know, incarcerating them and keeping them imprisoned is just, it's outrageous. And you'll see that I have a breakdown on the next couple of slides, but we shouldn't be wasting resources like that. Some of those resources that we could be saving on these can go to better schools, you know, programs that are out there to try to prevent people from going, you know, being serial killers or mass shooters or heavy crimers, you know, trying to use those valuable resources to improve the community instead of keeping it the same way and having those high numbers escalate. You know, it's just one of those things that I think about every day. It's just, you know, how can we make our community safer, better, you know, getting people off of the streets. It's crazy. It really is. Oh. So the death penalty organization information gives you somewhat of a breakdown. It doesn't give you exactly per inmate. This is what it costs to house one inmate, but they include, you know, the housing, the facility, operations. So it's really hard to look at that. The food, you know, for the food, it's $840 a year. So they're averaging total that it costs $81,203 to house an inmate. But like I said, it breaks down pretty much everything as far as the facility operations, which you can't really count on that because it's a facility itself. It's not per inmate. But as you can see, they do, inmates who are serving death row sentences still get health care, still get medical care, still get psychiatric services, they still get pharmaceuticals, they still get dental care. I mean, there's people that are out there now who don't have any of those services available to them because they're way too costly. But taxpayers are paying for inmates to get all that, you know, at our expense. But there's some of us who still can't afford that or don't have that because we don't have the resources to get it. you know, according to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, uh, housing an inmate in California correction system costs an average of $34,150 per year. That one's a little bit more accurate because this one, is not going into, the facility, the security, and things like that. But critics of the death penalty argue that the money spent on death sentences would be better spent on police, mental health, child abuse prevention than on executions. Now this is going back to this is being a very touchy subject. It's very imbalanced. There's always going to be disagreements, but I mean, the reason why it costs more to house an inmate that's on death penalty is because of all the trials, all the appeals that go into it. It's just money that's stacking up on top of each other to try to prove that whoever we are executing is indeed guilty. And yes, it's a harsh thing to say, but when you have people like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, John Wayne Gacy, where it's hard evidence, it was their home, they have the evidence, the Zodiac killer, things like that, we execute them without a trial. Why? Because the hard evidence is there against them. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you the cost of the cost of the lethal injection chemical, how much it costs to get a dose of that. And like I said, you can gather all this information yourself and see and really think about it, but it only costs $200 for that lethal injection, for the chemicals for the lethal injection. So compared to housing an inmate for a year, that's at $34,000 a year. I mean, which one is cheaper? Now there's not a lot of people out there that are going to be able to do it, with their conscience as far as, well, I don't want to take their life. And there are going to be people who say eye for an eye. But my thing is, like I said, those resources, those $34,000 a year, can be served for something better, other than making sure that these guys have a roof over their heads at the taxpayers' expense, not their own. And then there's families that are burying their loved ones because they didn't have a chance. They didn't. It was a careless act of someone who decided just to do it and didn't think twice of the repercussions. And I know it's difficult to say, but it's absolutely true. I mean, look at the recent events that's happened, or serial killers, and they're still out there. There's still a lot of people that are out there that haven't been caught, but there's also a lot of people out there that are still in prison in life sentences and enjoying their lives, while there are still families out there that have to live with that constant reminder that that person is alive, and we are housing them, and we are making sure that they have good teeth, good health care, that they get their schooling or their vocational training. And where some of us out here are struggling to get that, to get an education, or to further education, or to get health care, to get dental care. So I just wanted to bring it back and explain to everyone. I do hope that was enough information for you guys to really think about it. It's something, like I said, that has always interested me, just because it's crazy, being someone who pays taxes now, and really seeing that and kind of reading down the rabbit hole as to where everything goes. It's pretty intense. So I do hope that you guys keep an open mind. Like I said, it's very imbalanced. Everybody has their own decisions and their own opinions, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to share what I thought of it, and I hope that with some of you guys seeing these numbers, or either doing your own research and seeing what I mean by it, or hopefully it kind of leans you the other way as to, yeah, you know what, maybe there is a point to that, or at least catch your interest as to doing your own research to see what you think about it more. So thank you. Have a good day.